And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into today's recap of Pistons versus the Toronto Raptors, I want to give a quick shout out to Grind Clothing Co. Because if you've been watching our content for the last couple months, you might be wondering, I wonder, does Revved Up 906 have any merch? We do. We've officially partnered up with Grind Clothing Co. And our second merch drop has been out for a couple weeks now, about a month and a half, 2 months. So go in the link below, in the description below, rather, or in our YouTube bio, and you can find the links to our merch. And also go check out some of Grind Clothing Co.'s designs because they also got some great designs, kind of a style to match everybody's possible needs. Everybody can find something they like on that website. So make sure to go check out Grind Clothing Co. and to wear Revved Up 906 while you're out and about, going to the grocery store, hitting the weights, shooting hoops, whatever you're doing. Make sure to rep Revved Up 906. Without further ado, let's get into today's recap of Pistons versus the Toronto Raptors. Tonight's final score was 97 to 118 in the Toronto Raptors' favor. This game at times was pretty brutal to watch, but there are some fun statistics I want to get into before we break out into conversation about tonight's matchup. Jaden Ivey making a splash in the Detroit Pistons history books
Yep.
with being one of the three guys in their rookie seasons to reach 1,000 points, 300 assists, and 250 rebounds. The only other guys to do that was Grant Hill and Dave Bing. Not even Cade Cunningham. I'm
No,
guessing he.
I'm pretty sure Kate is in there.
Oh, they don't have him on there. Oh, dang it. Okay, on the visual, I just figured there's three guys, so he is
Okay.
there.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, because I figured that was he's a pretty good rebounder, so I figured he reached that mark. But yeah, so we'll say Cade is one of those guys. So to say that there's two seasons in a row where these rookies are reaching some of these big names in the Pistons history books, that's kind of nice to see as a fan.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially with a young guy like Ivy. And just in a sense of maybe he hasn't had the most productive, greatest season ever by a rookie player for our team, but the fact that he hit that mark already, and we still have 7, 8 games left of the season where
Mhm.
he's gonna be able to increase it more. So that just shows you how consistent he's been all season, and I like consistency out of him.
And another statistic I wanted to bring up in the last 15 games, James Wiseman has been with the Detroit Pistons. He has been averaging 13.3 points, 9 rebounds, and 55% shooting. So, shooting at a very efficient clip is James Wiseman. What are your thoughts on that stat line, Ryan? Do you want a little bit more from him in these last 7 games? What are you thinking? Where's your head at?
Honestly, if he keeps just being himself and doing what he's been doing, I'm happy. Because as long as we're getting production out of him and getting results into what the future could be like with him, that's all I'm looking for. It doesn't have to be like, oh, he's going off for 30 and 20 rebounds. Like he doesn't need to do that. He can just have a quiet night like tonight with the 14 points, 4 boards. I'm fine with that. I mean, granted, I'd want more boards than what he had tonight, but I'm still going to take 14 points out of him because at any given night, that's what Sadiq would normally have done for us. So it just shows you that Wiseman is showing that he was a good player to trade for out of it.
Now let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes of what kind of happened in this game. The Raptors scored 20 points in the first 5 minutes of tonight's game. Jaden Ivey, most notably, had 11 points in the first quarter. He was kind of on tonight. We'll talk a little bit more about Jaden Ivey, but there was points in this game against the Toronto Raptors where the Raptors looked like they were just in a dunk contest. Now, Marvin Bagley, James Wiseman, we saw a lot of minutes from these guys tonight. Bagley put up 16 points, James Wiseman put up 14. Now, offensively, they didn't really do too bad. I mean, we're kind of happy with that. But what kind of happened defensively? Were guys just kind of sluggish? Where was the energy at?
I it just it might be the combination of Bagley and Wiseman because we've noted this in past games that they've been on the court together. That one guy looks great, the other looks eh, and then either or you have the combination together where they're both like, ugh. And so I don't think Bagley and Wiseman work as well as what Casey had thought or wants to think. And I'm not doubting him as a coach. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying they're two totally different kinds of players. Because, well, okay, maybe not two totally different because they both want the ball and they both want to score. But Bagley wants to score more than Wiseman does. And you can tell. So, like, any chance Bagley gets the ball, he's not looking to pass. I mean, neither is Wiseman majority of the time, but Bagley's worse. And
Yeah.
so I just don't think the two bounce off of each other very well. Yeah, it's nice that both of them had the 14 points and everything, but at the same time, defensively, Wiseman's a better defender than Bagley is by a landslide, which means that what happened tonight is all of the weight and pressure got put on Wiseman to perform because Bagley wasn't going to do it. And so when you have all that weight on one individual with Bagley kind of sitting back and doing nothing, it's very easy to exploit the defense while you have just one guy pretty much doing it all.
It's kind of interesting because when you look at the box score, nothing really screams out to you that the Pistons struggled. But when you watch the game, you're like, certain parts of the game, you're just like, all right, this is kind of brutal. But you look at the box score, the Pistons shot 46% from the field. The Raptors shot 44%. And as far as assists, the Pistons had 23, the Raptors had 25. Blocks, the Pistons had 4, the Raptors had 9. And then steals, the Pistons had 8 and the Toronto Raptors had 12. So nothing too crazy. I mean, you could say the blocks, that's a pretty big discrepancy. I mean, that's a lot. 9 is a lot in a game. But when you look at the box score, you're not really like, oh no, like that's where everything went wrong. It's more just the Pistons just really couldn't get stops. The Pistons allowed 72 points in the first half. I think to kind of talk about the Bagley and James Wiseman situation in the paint, it's almost like they're almost too similar, in my opinion. Their play style is very similar. They both move very similarly on the defensive end. It almost seems to me that maybe there's just a little too much congestion in the paint. There's some log jams. So then these two guys that typically are most notably at the 5 position, I don't think Bagley can take a step back and go at power forward is what seems to be. And that's why like tonight, the duo of Bagley versus Wiseman just didn't really prove to me that it's going to work out. And that's actually what we're going to be talking about in episode number 20 coming out Saturday. So make sure to be on the lookout for that. We talk about the possibility of what power forward and center duo might lead us to the promised land per se. But I think tonight was really the biggest growing pains in that duo. And because really theoretically on paper, right, these two guys are supposed to get a lot of stops, but we just didn't really see that. We saw Eugene actually play better defense than these two guys. Amarui had a big time block against, I believe, Chris Bushi, also RJ Hampton. So it's like these other guys that we wouldn't expect to step up defensively helped out there in the second half. But really the Pistons just couldn't find stops in that first half.
I mean, defensively, sure, we were allowing them to score a lot, but it didn't help. Okay, what I'm saying didn't help is our turnovers. Our points, we were scoring just fine. It could have been much better. Granted, we had 97, but it could have been higher, but that's how the turnovers count in. We had 22 turnovers. That is awful. Toronto only had 11. We doubled it.
Mhm.
Now, the only reason why we really stayed in this, besides our scoring, is Toronto fouled us 24 times, and we only fouled 18. So I think this game would have been much worse than what it was if Toronto wasn't fouling as much as they had been, because defensively, we were nowhere to be found. Offensively, we were hanging in there, but it wasn't like, wow, our offense is on tonight, because it clearly wasn't if we're having 22 turnovers. But it's just one of those games because, I mean, we go back to the talent that the Raptors have. They have one of the better rosters in the league. Granted, they're not playing like it right now because they've had a down season with injuries like we've had. But it, like, when you have Pascal Siakam, he's a stud. OG Anunoby's a stud. Fred VanVleet is a stud. Like, you have three powerhouses right there. And then don't forget, Malachi Flynn is a solid point guard off the bench. Chris Boucher is a solid four coming off the bench. Like, they have pieces to win,
Right.
where we do have pieces to win. They're just not healthy. And so that's the big problem in tonight, is the fact that they had all of their key guys where we had nobody pretty much. And then you take into account that we turned the ball over 22 times. Our defense is terrible. And so it's not a key to success. And it's very hard to play like this and beat good teams like the Raptors and others.
Comment below if you've noticed this. And Ryan, I want to know your thoughts on this. We've talked about it before in very briefly, but tonight it seemed very obvious to me that offensively, whoever didn't have the ball was just standing there and watching. Marvin Bagley's notably like very bad at that. Isaiah Livers, we even saw that, who typically is pretty active. RJ Hampton, I've noticed, is very much like that. If he doesn't have the ball in his hand, he's just kind of standing watching. And that is my pet peeve. We've seen Eugene Amarui, Rodney McGruder, when he was healthy, succeed at cutting to the basket, setting screens, being active without the ball. And, historically, we've seen guys like Richard Hamilton, a notable Pistons player, that didn't need to have the ball in his hand to be successful. And I really want to see our offense start to get more active, because those turnovers, like you said, 22 on the game in 4 quarters, that is just not winning basketball. That's really what did us in tonight. And I think that's because they're forcing these passes that aren't open. And when you're getting suffocated the way the Pistons did tonight, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah, cutting is a huge key in basketball and winning games. If you're not cutting, you're doing something wrong, obviously. And honestly, if you kind of just want to stand there, just V cut. That's the
Right.
easiest cut to do.
Right.
Just bring your man down and cut back out. You're wide open. There's a three. Boom. Rather than just stand there and expect to get the ball. At least do something in order to get it. But it's not just us. It's all of the young teams and old teams in the league. We've gotten accustomed to just expecting the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Where you go in high school, you go in college, you're seeing people cutting all over the place. It's like once you get to the NBA, you're like, oh, forget that. We don't have to do that anymore. But no, you have to. Because you look back historically, you look back at all the great teams, what did they do? They cut and they did all the fundamentals. Today's NBA, a key reason and why teams lose like they do is because they're not playing defense, they're not cutting, and they're not doing the little things. You
Right.
got to do all those to win. And yeah, scoring is a key thing, but scoring falls into the fundamentals. So, yes, we do stand a lot. We don't cut. And honestly, it's not a bold take because of how he's been playing. But if we had Rodney McGruder tonight, this game would have been totally different.
I don't disagree. I think with his play style, adding his energy to this Pistons team tonight, obviously, like, they didn't play too bad. It's just the turnovers. So it's like if you add a guy like Rodney McGruder, that's going to add a little bit more of a energy per se to your offense. I think he's a guy that just plays smart, and I'm not sure if it's because he's a veteran or I'm not sure what it is, but he knows how to find space offensively. And so, and honestly, when he was playing and playing well, like this last week and a half week, we were like averaging like 12 or below turnovers.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden he's out on injury and we have 22 turnovers. Now, is that just, out of the blue, just happened randomly? I'm not sure, but it seems to be that, without a guy like Rodney Magruder, it really does make a difference.
It honestly has to be the vet presence. Look at who played tonight. Not one of them. I mean, technically, you could say Bagley is a vet, but not one of them is a vet. They're all
Right.
young. We didn't play with one vet tonight,
Yeah.
and you look at Toronto, that entire team is vets.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
know how to play. They know how to win. And when you have a winning team who's actually experienced going against a young team, it's very easy to pick on them and show all their faults. Because again, if we had Rodney Magruder or even Corey Joseph or Hami, just at least one of them out in tonight, like you would have seen their impact, not only individually, but you would have seen the impact on the whole team. Because when Rodney Magruder, when he was playing, he was like 16, 18 points a game, and he was
Mhm.
all over the place. The same with Corey Joseph. And so when you're missing your two key guys to lead, it's kind of hard to pick that up because where are you going to find it? Because some of
Right.
these guys are like, I don't really feel like doing what they did because I want to be me. But you should do what they did because they knew what it took to win. So we're just in that mindset of how do we play without our key vets? And that's what honestly probably is the reason why we lost tonight is we didn't have the vet presence.
We mentioned him before, Jaden Ivey tonight, 20 points, 7 of 13 shooting, 2 of 6 from the three-point line. So, but he got his two. 8 assists on 41 minutes. Our guy, Jaden Ivey, is an absolute grinder. He is a guy that he doesn't like the easy shots. He likes having a hand in his face, being tilted over, throwing it up. We saw him accidentally give a knee to Jakob Pertl. Hopefully Jakob Pertl is able to have kids one day. Hopefully he's fine. But Jaden Ivey, I mean, he does not like those easy shots. He likes making himself, giving himself a hard time. But dude, the way he knocks down those shots, it's like a Kobe fadeaway jumper on
Yeah.
steroids. Like it's like even more leaned back sometimes. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, he recently on NBA TV, he was talking with Isaiah Thomas and he was breaking down how he reacts to the defender. And I'm like, wow, that's actually impressive because it's all about the plant foot. That's all he pays attention to. It
Mm,
depends which one steps forward and which one doesn't, like which foot, and then he reacts based off that. And let's say it's wide open, he obviously will go for the layup, but if it's closed off a little bit, he'll look for the pass. And we see that
right.
all the time. And so that's really interesting how he breaks it down and he follows the feet rather than who's in front of him or what's going on. He just reacts to the feet. And so when he slowly is grinding down the defense, taking the tough shots, he's really just reading the reaction and seeing what he needs to do in that situation. And it's just like a snap of the finger. That's all it takes because he's not waiting 5 minutes before he takes a shot. He's seeing what the defense gives him before he does anything. And that's one of the most impressive things out of him, given that he's so young still, is that he's kind of like, again, like the Kobe shot. He has that Kobe-esque kind of mentality where he's just going to grind you down the entire
Yeah.
game and then hit that shot right in front of you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
RJ Hampton tonight, I kind of want to talk about him a little bit. He had 13 points, 4 of 8 shooting in 21 minutes. You know, from the 3-point line, he was 2 of 6. So kind of like Jay Ivey, not the most efficient. The Pistons overall weren't the most efficient from 3-point land tonight. That's going to happen with our roster situation we have with injuries. But RJ Hampton, I've been liking his game. He takes some questionable shots here and there, but I think that's just because he's young. He's trying to get his shots up. I don't blame him. Especially given the opportunity he has right now late in the season, trying to get some eyes. But he's a guy that I feel like is mixing well with the team these last couple of games. He's starting to kind of find that chemistry is what I'm kind of seeing on the court.
Yeah, he's clicking. If you look at his previous destinations, and I've brought this up a lot, but what was one thing he really didn't have? I mean, yeah, he had it more in Orlando than Denver, but he really never had the chemistry with his teammates. And this team is built differently than Orlando, obviously, in the sense that a lot of the guys in Orlando, I'm under the impression, don't really, there's like certain groups within the team that get along
Mhm.
with each other. Whereas in Detroit, everyone gets along with everyone because they're all ballpark same age. And
Right.
granted, Corey Joseph and Rodney McGruder and Hami, they're a bit older than all these guys, but they still fit in perfectly. And that's what Weaver has done. He's built a team that no matter what age you are gonna fit in. And that's when we say Killian Hayes lacks confidence. Confidence is a part of how high your chemistry is with everyone around you also. And so you can see RJ Hampton when he's confident and he's building that chemistry game by game with all of his teammates, you can see how he's improving each night out. And tonight is just another step forward into like, hey, I belong here and I want to be a part of this and I want to create something special. And so the chemistry and the just the overall camaraderie of the team is very important in terms of winning. Because if you don't have good chemistry, you're not going to win. And the fact that he's just bringing in these slow little nuggets of like 10 points here, 13 points there, 9 points there, he's slowly building it up. And so that's something good and positive because when we have a guy like that coming off the bench in the future, when we're in a playoff run or something similar to that, that's very crucial for success.
I guess if I have to break down into two categories as we wrap up here of what went wrong, we'll roll with 22 turnovers, like we made mention of. But then also, the Pistons only shot 24% from the 3-point line tonight, 6 of 25. You do not want to only have 6 3-pointers at the end of the game. You typically want to have like what Toronto had tonight, 13. You kind of want to be hovering around that for sure. Double digits is kind of what you need to win. But as far as some of your last takeaways from today's game, Ryan, what are some of your last?
Livers came up and did his thing like everyone expects him to. He needs to be in that range of 12 plus points in order to be good. And there's stretches where he hasn't done that. And then you constantly go like, oh shoot, he's definitely in question right now. But if he keeps doing like he's been doing and having these 12-point nuggets here and there, you're like, oh, okay. I understand why he's here. He's a crucial piece, blah, blah, blah. But I'm happy with the results he got tonight. I'm not complaining. He played 30 minutes. I'd rather have him have 12 points in 30 minutes than 2 points in 30 minutes. So
Right.
I'm happy with his overall play tonight.
Yeah, definitely. These last couple weeks, he kind of hinted at it. He has been having some goose eggs here and there. So it's definitely nice to see Dwayne Casey not giving up on him, puts him in the starting lineup, gives him 30 minutes, and then, Livers goes out and does his thing, kind of just, etches up the scoring board throughout all 4 quarters, finishing with 12 points, 4 of 8 from the field, 1 of 4 from the 3-point line. But that's why I'll always vouch for Dwayne Casey because growing up, we saw guys like Stan Van Gundy, Spencer Dinwiddie would come in and he'd have like 3 opportunities. He would struggle and then he's traded. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like at least, we can give credit to Dwayne Casey where he's giving these guys multiple chances and a season full of losing. Yes, losing, but these guys are getting through those growing pains and showing that they're getting better. Guys like Isaiah Livers tonight kind of stepped up to the occasion, showing that he can still score in today's NBA. Killian Hayes, 6.7 assists and 5 rebounds. Not a terrible stat line, not a goose egg. He made an impact. And then Jaden Ivey, of course, having another great game. So these young guys are showing, yes, we're losing, but there is some depth to this team, and there are some nuggets of gold on this team, and we just got to keep panning. Tonight's final score was 97 to 118 in the Toronto Raptors' favor. Before you guys leave, make sure to like and subscribe. We are a Detroit Pistons podcast that are looking to grow, so make sure to share us. There's a share button below this video that you can share on any social media platform. Choose whatever you would prefer and spread word on Revved Up 906. We will see you guys in episode number 20. Peace.